here with part 2 in the Better Marketing for Coaches. Oh, there's a good title for a series. So this is me telling coaches, really, and therapists and alphabet therapists and practitioners of all disciplines, really what it is that I do and people that I work with, what we do differently, as opposed to the general hoi polloi of the narcissistic, self-promotion, self-aggrandizing personal development industry. Now, this one is about the issue of charging money, and it's always a bit of a tricky one, this. And everything I'm going to say to you here, I've got no evidence that I'm right, other than this is just how I do it, what I do, the beliefs and values that I have around charging money. When I very first started, one of the most common mentalities and ethos that I would encounter, both in NLP groups and clubs and practice groups, and in the business circles like the business networking groups like BNI, chambers of commerce, and the various business breakfast clubs that I used to attend as well, I used to encounter the same thing, and it was restated to me in multiple ways. And it seems to be, even now, all these years later, it's still quite a prevalent mindset. And that is, you should charge the highest fee you can get away with. If you don't charge high enough, you won't be taken seriously. And that really you should raise your prices and you'll get a lot more custom. Because people respect you when you charge a decent fee. And if you're too cheap, people will think you're cheap and won't come and see you. That's absolute nonsense. Okay, that works if you're selling a Porsche. That works if you're selling Rolex watches. If you have items that by the very fact I'm wearing it or driving it, it makes a statement of, hey, look at me, I'm rich, look what I drive. That doesn't apply to therapy and coaching. This was the other mindset. If you charge a high fee, you will be respected more. And also, your client will value the work a lot more. You see, if you don't charge enough, the client doesn't really value the service. And they may well think, oh yes, you're expensive. But if it's important to them, they'll find the money, because they can always find the money for things that are important to them. Like people who smoke. If it's that important, they can stop smoking. So people will always find a way. And if they need to borrow the money, they can. Because if it's important to them, they'll do it. Oh my God, absolute exploitative, just scumbaggery mindset. Essentially, you can always get rich by fleecing the poor. And that is the mindset here, which is you are really important, just charge the fuckers as much money as you can get off them. But you don't want to be perceived cheaply. And this is the thing. Now, I used to come across this a lot. Now, in every circuit in which I used to frequent, and this is back in the days where I still liked people. I wasn't a recluse in the attic. I used to hear the same story. The same story, which was, I think, probably true one time, but it's mostly apocryphal. But I would hear it everywhere. Oh, yes, you know about John, because he knows the guy. He's got his first six-figure client. And this mythical coaching session that some coach has marketed themselves for by charging a high fee, and they've got the client who's the multi-millionaire who's got a six-figure disposable income that they can pay on a 1-hour coaching session. And I have seen some of these bloody marketing guru coaches, financial freedom people, who actually will tell you how much money their top students have paid them. It's almost like this is a badge of honor that we've managed to fleece these idiots for paying 6 figures for my coaching program. You've got to have to ask a few questions here. But first of all, is that true? But the other one is that really good value for money? I mean, seriously? Oh yes, but it's very good value for money when what you have is skills and techniques that will change the person's life. Okay, so they could go and do that weekend coaching course themselves then and save themselves 6 figures. They don't have to come and see you. Really? Would that be true? Because I think it probably is. And of course, this is how a lot of people actually end up as therapists and coaches. Not because they want a business. They want therapy. They want help. And it's cheaper to go for sometimes, and for some people, to go and train as a coach and therapist. And of course, they get these certifications that get given to them, and they get shepherded down the route of, you're a practitioner now, come back on our next level course, and then you could be successful. And then this constant thing, which is, I can bring you back on my course because there's these potential 6-figure clients out there for you. So come back on my next level course and you can have those 6-figure clients too. Don't work harder, work smarter. The attitudes, the ethics of the entire industry, which revolves around the high fee, which uses this thing about if the client can't afford it, they've got limiting beliefs about money. Yeah, so we can basically groom them and then fleece them. That's ultimately what they're saying here. Don't do that. Now, what do I charge? I charge £125 for a 2-hour session. And I've plenty of time had people say to me, oh, that's too cheap. Actually, I think it's too expensive. I sometimes do feel a little bit bad about that. So it works out at around about £67 for an hour per hour. And then there's all the additional stuff that I give people as well. I've got various online programs that I sign them up for. Don't ever do an upsell with a client. When people pay a fee and then I enroll them on a particular program, I don't upsell them and make them pay that. That's usually given to them for free. Now, that's the fee that I've sort of arrived at. I'm not likely to be putting that fee up anytime soon, despite people suggesting to me that I should, because that way I'll raise my status and importance in the industry. Do I really want to raise my status and importance in the industry? Look at it. Just look at the state of it. I have my prices displayed prominently on my website. Before people can book, before they can contact me, they can't miss the fact of what my prices are. They're absolutely obvious. And people book by going into my booking diary and then choosing the slot and paying that way. And I will take payment by installment as well for people if that makes life easier. Now, it is a difficult thing because we're making money off people who are disadvantaged. That is ultimately what we're doing. We are making our living from people who need help. And we can justify that to say, well, dentists don't work for free. Even vicars get paid. Doctors don't work for free. Surgeons usually have a big house and a big car. So we can put it in the context of it as a profession, and people don't have to come and see us if they want to. That's a reasonable argument that this is a career, it is a job. But it's when it starts to become exploitative. And some of these values that are espoused are largely built around not it being advantageous for the client, but it's advantageous for me because it raises my importance, raises my status. But I think most of this is actually fallacious. It is completely false. If it's important to them, they'll find the money. Most people who need help won't be able to find the money. And it is important to them, and it's not because they've got limiting beliefs. It is because they have limited opportunity and limited scope of things that are limited resources of what's available to them. And it's a bit of a, again, to use the word, it's a bit of a narcissistic attitude coming from therapists, which I think is so prevalent. So this is one thing that I find really important. Display your prices prominently. Look on some coaches and trainers' websites. Their prices are nowhere to be seen. You have to contact them in order to discuss your needs. Yeah, I know why. Because they're going to run a sales pitch. They're going to enroll you in like 12 sessions for whatever price. They will try and they're going to run a sales pitch on the person that phones them. Rather than, well, just picture the following scenario. Hi, is that Andy Austin? Yeah, how much do you charge? That's not an unreasonable question to begin with. And if you phone a coach or therapist or trainer and you say, how much do you charge because the prices aren't displayed, and they don't come straight back with a figure, you know you're being groomed. Because that's what that is about. They are grooming you to accept whatever they're about to tell you. There's a reason why they're not displaying their prices. And I think one of the things that's quite important is to be upfront and be honest with what we're doing, and so people can shop around. Because the other value that so many coaches and therapists seem to have is you shouldn't be sold on price. You're sold on delivery of quality and how important you are, and you've got these certifications, you've invested all your time and training and money in learning the skill sets that you've got, therefore you're justified in charging a high fee. Yeah, all well and good. but why aren't they displaying their prices? And so I know that when you display your prices, because I have tried both, back in the early days, I did flip around between both. Displaying prices means somebody can make an informed decision at the point of or prior to the point of contact, and they know what they're doing. My experience was every single person that contacted me before I displayed my prices, or when I was doing my trial to see what the effect was, and they would say, "How much do you charge?" They never follow up. I'll never hear from them again, because they're shopping around to find the best deal. And that's a reasonable thing to do, because think about it, they're buying a service. Just like some people buy a food and they're going to shop around for the food. Think about this. We have a branded cola, and it doesn't matter where in the world you go, that brand of cola is going to be exactly the same. Now, if you buy it from this shop, it's cheaper than if you buy it from that shop down the road, it's more expensive. Which shop are you going to buy it from? You're going to buy it from this shop where it's cheaper, because it's exactly the same thing. That is what people are familiar with when it comes to brands and products. So think about the naive client who doesn't know about therapists, doesn't know about the different mindsets and mentalities and attitudes that therapists and coaches possess. They just know hypnotherapy can help you stop smoking. There's a reasonable assumption, just like when you go to a doctor, you would expect the quality of all medical delivery to be standardized across all general practitioners. People have the same values and beliefs when applying it to, say, a hypnotherapist, a life coach, or anybody else. So, somebody who wants to stop smoking is going to naturally assume all people who do hypnotherapy to stop smoking have the same quality. So it is a perfectly reasonable thing for them to shop around on price. And they need to make an informed decision as to which is the best value for them. And then, of course, they have to now weigh up. Well, this one's doing, say, £200 for 6 sessions. This one guarantees 1 session, but it's £800, or my money back. Which is the better value? It's a no-brainer. So it's important that when people shop around, we must understand they have different values and motives behind what they're doing and how they arrive at those decisions. As coaches, therapists, and practitioners, we must facilitate people to live a better life. And part of that is to actually interact with them at the level of meet them at their model of the world. And if they wish to shop around on price and find these things out, let that be so. Okay, they may be making a mistake. They may be. I know that because I've seen the quality of a lot of therapists. But to try and use subterfuge, to try and use manipulation and what really is nothing more than grooming to support a set of values and beliefs about how much we should charge and how it's going to force them to value us, that's something else going on there. And that's something I would urge you to reevaluate and consider. Now, with all that said, there's something else when it comes to pricing that's worth mentioning. So for a period of time, I was experimenting with a particular price that I was charging, but I was also doing free Fridays. So every Friday, I would have a number of sessions, usually 2 or 3, that were free. So it'd be 1 hour, and I wouldn't charge people. And I would invite people to basically say, if you're waged and can afford it, please don't book on the Friday. Leave those for the people that need it. And so every Friday, I wasn't necessarily full with free clients, but I would get them come through to me. And I'd see them on Fridays. But here was what I found. If those people who don't get charged any fee whatsoever would present to me the greater level of difficulty, so they would be people who would not turn up, having booked the appointment. They would turn up very late. They would turn up at completely wrong days. Didn't get that with anybody else, but only the free Friday clients. I would have a higher level of expectation from people. So literally, they're not paying for it, but they want things to be much better than realistically they could be. And they would be the people who are much more likely to complain. So having said all my little rant from before, there is a degree of reality behind that, is that when something is offered for free, you don't always get people who value it. So I introduced this, £1 sessions. That made all the difference. So you can still do effectively the free Fridays, but as long as there is a form of token payment, whether it's £1 or whether they do a favour exchange. And I got involved a little bit for a while through one of these groups where essentially you have a token, and that I can buy this token from you in exchange for something, and then we now have a token economy between people where we do free things for each other, so that I buy something from you, you don't have to give it back to me, you can do it with somebody else, and it goes around in a circle, that kind of thing. And that worked extremely well. There has to be something of an exchange, otherwise the expectation set is only one way. And in any relationship, in any context, a one-way relationship doesn't always work out so well. But that's not defined by the extent of the fee. The bigger the fee, the more reliable people are. Well, maybe, because the bigger the fee, the less problems the fee payer is likely to have. The person with a disposable six-figure income, the mythical person, isn't going to quite have the same amount of problems as the person who's going to struggle to pay £5 for a session, because that is literally all they have spare at the end of a working week. And we've got to look at just how many people in any country are living absolutely on the breadline. And that is possibly half the population. I think it's getting worse as time goes on. So there are a significant percentage of people who actually don't have disposable income to be able to afford recreational therapy. And recreational therapy is what a lot of people are getting. When we look at the level of problems they actually have, we're not talking major mental dysfunctions, whatever else. I used to call this cosmetic therapy. It's largely, well, I could just improve my confidence. I want to be a little bit more successful. I want to be a little bit happier. I want to, increase my attractiveness to the opposite sex. Cosmetic stuff, as opposed to, I've tried to hang myself last week and I'm depressed. That kind of level of stuff. So you find the higher the level of income, the more likely the problem is to be cosmetic. The lower the level of income and available cash, the greater the realistic need is for change work and therapy. Coaches don't like the latter, because the people with actual problems either don't have the money and need more expertise. What most six-figure coaches, success coaches and all the rest, with a nice house and their fancy photographs and all the posh wording on their website that makes them look so important and successful, they like people with lots of money and very low level problems. And you've got to really decide, what are you doing, and what are you doing it for, and who are you doing it for, and make your marketing and accessibility correlate with that demographic. What so many people are doing is they're portraying themselves as therapists, but want to be the six-figure success coach because they want to live the dream. Well, that's not really the mindset, the attitude, or the ethos of a therapist who is actually helping people with problems. So I think that's all I've got for this one. As always, do please click the like button. Any questions, comments, objections, stick them in the comment section. I mean, an interaction's an interaction. YouTube love all that kind of stuff. It helps me with the channel. So I'll see you in the next video.